Welcome everybody, it's Matthew from Captive Audience Comics here, and today we are going to be going through all of the tools that we use for cleaning and pressing books. We're going to go right from the basics, stuff that you're going to use every day on every single book, to some tools that are a little more specific to certain flaws or certain issues that you might see when working on books. We'll show you a close-up of the tool. We'll tell you how we're going to use it and in what application, and then we'll sort of set them out on our work surface, and you'll see how they're going to quickly pile up. Now, when we started, we certainly did not go out and buy all this stuff at once. We bought the basics, and then as we wanted to try out new things, we would buy something else, and add to it until you reach a point where you have a fairly extensive selection of products and tools that we're going to use depending on the age of the book, the quality of the paper, the type of gloss, the type of defect, all those kind of things that you'll learn over time with experience, how different books are going to react and need different tools. So let's go ahead and set up our overhead cam for you guys. Okay. The first thing that we're going to talk about is your work surface. So you want a work surface that's going to be large enough to hold the various sizes of books that you're going to be using. So this is this is from Curry's, which is an art store we have here, but this is a self-sealing like art cutting mat. Okay, so if you cut on this with an X-Acto knife, it doesn't leave a sharp edge. Where you cut it, it sort of settles itself back down. As you can see, this particular one is about 17 and a half by about let me see, I guess this is 1, so that's 10, but 11 and a half inches. Okay, so this is big enough that I can use this on a modern or a Silver Age book. I can even fold it open on here. In fact, I'm going to show you guys. Let me just quickly grab you a book that we'll be working on later today, so you can see what I'm talking about. Right. So there you go. So there is a Thor 131 we'll be working on today. You can see we have lots of space around the outside. If I want to open this book up, I got lots of space, right, to work on this book. Larger books, Silver Age books will do that as well. Magazines, you can just change the orientation and work on it this way. Okay, so just make sure you have one large enough. You can get ones of these that are big enough to cover like your entire desk surface area. I like this size because if I want to move it and store it away, it's easy to, find a place to stick it. Okay, so that's the first tool, is your working mat. Your second item is going to be basic dry cleaning tools. Okay, and that's all your erasers and abrasives. And we're going to start out here with the cotton pad. So some people will only use a cotton pad to clean a book, which is really just going to take off sort of loose surface dirt. As far as cotton pads go, we've tried many. Currently, we're using these. I don't know what brand this is. This Lori brand. It's not a round cotton pad. It's a square cotton pad, and you'll see it's got some texturing on it. Okay, it doesn't matter what kind of cotton pad you use, as long as you choose one that's high quality, that doesn't leave fuzz behind when you use it. That's the biggest thing. You can also use a lot of times especially for buffing. We'll use, these are glasses, microfiber glass cleaning things, and you'll see how we've cleaned off stuff with these. Okay, so a microfiber cloth is also excellent. These are also good for buffing out smudges, surface marring, just polishing foils and high gloss books. Okay, so those are great to have as well. As far as erasers go, I guess we'll start from sort of least aggressive or to maybe most aggressive. This is a Linco document non-abrasive cleaning pad. It's basically like a fabric pouch full of super fine eraser shavings, and you squeeze the pouch like this and little pieces fall out, and then you just work it around in random patterns so you don't leave weird brush marks or marks on the paper. It won't leave marks if you don't press very hard. Obviously, with anything, if you overdo it, it's going to leave marks. This is great for working on books with little to no gloss, especially Golden Age books, newsprint books where the covers weren't protected at all, and you just need some light cleaning. Also, if you want to take off things like pencil on top of colored areas, especially in older books, you can use this. You do need to know when to stop because there's a fine line between taking off enough to make it look better and, taking off too much. Second, we have, this is an absorbing sponge, okay? It's literally just a super aerated rubber sponge. Now, we do not use it. It comes in like a block like this, I guess. We don't use it in that size. We cut it into squares like this, and you'll see this is one that we use regularly, and you'll see how it's falling apart as it collects dirt. This will all flake away just like an eraser, and gradually you just wear that away until you get a new piece, okay? Next on the eraser front is, we'll go down our erasers from our largest to our smallest. So the largest eraser that we use is, this is a Mr. Pen premium eraser. I don't know why it's called Mr. Pen, because they don't erase pen, but we like these. You need to find an eraser that has the right level of softness, firmness, and crumbliness all together. Some art gum erasers are so soft they just literally crumble to pieces, and I don't like those. I like these. They do tend to, after usage, they will they'll shear, which doesn't matter. So you break off a chunk and you use that until there's not much left. I like this eraser. It has a really good, I guess, a pickup quality versus softness. It doesn't damage the paper very much, and you learn, sort of how much pressure that you can do. Next, we don't use these very often, but these are professional cap erasers. I'm not a big fan of these, but there are people that swear by these. That they do whole books with these. So we do have some. Like I say, we don't use them very often. I think we have better choices for that. Next in our eraser line is a Statler. I guess they call it like mechanical eraser. This is probably a, I don't know, 5 mil, or maybe is that a 1/4 inch? Sorry guys, I'm in Canada. Do conversions, but anyways, you can see from my finger here that it's still fairly wide, but obviously getting smaller than a big eraser here. Moving down in our eraser sizes, next we have another, I don't know if it's a Statler, whatever, another pen eraser, but you're going to see that this one now is about 2 mil, maybe an 1/8 of an inch. So you can see that. Now, I have the ends angled. When you buy the new erasers, they're like 90-degree square ends, okay? I just rub them down on my artboard to give them a rounded edge, okay? You can angle them however you want. Some guys use those and create like points on them, which are really good. Next is the Mono Zero, okay? The Mono Zero, there you go. Okay, this is a must-have. This is like a 1 mil end, super tiny, okay? This is what you're going to use to get in between all your detail pieces, the barcode boxes, any kind of little teeny tiny tight area. I do hear people say, oh, I cleaned my whole book using this. That is, in my opinion, a complete waste of time. If you're using this to clean a whole book, I mean, what are you spending, like 6 hours to clean one book? I don't understand, but people do whatever they want. The one thing you got to watch out for these is the end of this, and I'll show you. There is a plastic core, okay, that runs inside of this rubber piece, and that's what allows you to use it, okay? As you get closer to the end, you can't tell how close you are to the end, and that plastic core will eventually poke out of your eraser. So, and you could scratch a book if you obviously rub that and that plastic core pops out. You're going to scratch the surface. So just make sure you keep an eye on where you're at with that eraser, because obviously don't want to be doing that for sure. Okay. Something that it's not an eraser, but we'll talk about these now. So this is a 1000 grit wet sanding pad. I've used it so much it probably feels more like a 3000 grit. Now I use this on my my press platens for my cold press and my hot press. So unless you're working in like a chemical clean room, your press is going to attract dirt just by the nature of the air currents that it creates with the hot and the cold. It's going to attract things, okay? And you'll feel when you run your hand over your platen, you'll feel tiny little imperfections on it, and that's just debris that's stuck to it, obviously through the heat and humidity of your work area, stuck there. Well, you want to be able to smooth that off quickly without damaging it. So I just use that. I just give my platens a quick once over before I start my work for the day. If I'm doing a lot of books in a day, I might feel it midday, make sure everything's good, and smooth that off, okay? Now, if you get a new press, and you have new platens, or you're going to use plates, we can talk about plates later, you're going to want to sand those down anyways, and I recommend you get yourself a sanding disc set that goes all the way from whatever the lowest grit, like 400 up to like 20,000 grit, which is like baby smooth, and you just work your way through those gradations till you have perfectly smooth surface. New platens should always be checked for imperfections when you get them a new press. A lot of these presses, their industry designed use isn't what we're using it for, so the tolerances for the plate might not be as high as what we want them to be. Okay, let's talk next about, well, this isn't a hand tool, but we'll talk about it. So this is a, what's called a tick attack board. So it's just a 56-point backing board that's been edge beveled. Let me see if I can get the camera to see that. Okay, maybe I can show you off the end. You see how it's been edge beveled? This is so that sometimes when you're attacking a tick on the edge of a spine, you want to lift that tick up a little more to recreate that natural curvature of it, because that tick should that spine should have a nice curve to it. This board forces that paper up into that curve, so when you tick attack it, it's reforming that natural curvature of the paper after it's been humidified. You don't need this. Plenty of people just use a hand tool and put a piece of something in behind, whatever, it doesn't matter. I have found that in certain cases, these are very good at helping reform that natural curve. Okay, now that's sort of like an optional thing. Something else is kind of like an eraser, but not. So a nice fluffy headed brush, and this is just because very few times do I need to use this to clear debris off of a book. But if you are working with a very old book with brittle pages and lots of tears and everything like that, and you're just using a little document cleaning pad on it because anything else is going to destroy that book, you want to have a little fuzzy brush so you can clean your erasers off and always move to the edge. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Let's get into hand tools. We'll start with something, I guess not really a hand tool, but a good X-Acto knife set. Okay. You don't have a lot of application for this in regular cleaning and pressing, but where you're going to use these, and there are in a couple of cases. Okay. So when I say a good kit, you want to have multiple handles, different shaped ends, something that's comfy to grip, okay? You may find color touch in a book and contact your customer and be like, hey, what do you want to do? And then color touch can be removed from a book in two ways. Light scraping if it's surface color and it just sits on top. You can scrape with the edge of the X-Acto knife blade very slowly, scrape, and scrape that away. Or you can use that to cut the color touch out of the paper, taking out the minimal amount of paper required to remove it, okay? Sometimes people want me to remove misfolds. So sometimes when a book is printed, the edge of paper gets folded in, and then when you open the book and you fold it back out, you have a piece of paper out the side. Normally, I recommend you just fold those back in. That's manufacturers. But we have had issues where customers have said, no, I want you to cut that off. I don't want it in there. It's just for my personal use, whatever. And you're going to want to have a good X-Acto knife and a nice straight edge to take care of that, okay? In line with an X-Acto knife is a scraper, good scraper. So this scraper here, which has a nice rubberized body and has two ends, okay? Plastic scraper, replaceable, and metal. Now, we use the metal, obviously, well, mainly for opening packages, but the plastic scraper is fantastic. Scraping off unknown gunk, old boogers, just debris stuck to a book, sometimes just thick pieces of dirt. You know, you can take that and you can scrape that down very slowly and get down to a more smooth area of your book. Okay, let's talk about hand tools for working out defects, okay? So you're going to need a variety of hand tool rollers, okay? So we're going to show you the ones that we use. Now, this is a big one. I think this might be a 1-inch steel ball bearing inside of a this bearing. This is probably a furniture bearing wheel, actually. But anyways, on a nice comfy wood handle, okay? This is good for wide area stuff. Sometimes we use this after we work on a tighter area. We'll use this around it to even it out and feather out the hand tooling area, okay? So there's the big guy. Next is a slightly smaller one, okay? This is maybe a 1/2 inch, okay? This one is a little it's hard to hear, but the bearings in this are a little looser. Something you want to watch out for in here is if you get too much bearing movement in here, it'll actually create you'll get metal fatigue and super tiny, almost like metal, not shavings, but almost like sanded metal. So just make sure that you're using a piece of SRP between your working surface and this. That way, if there is any kind of debris works off from the bearings or the metal housing, then you don't have to worry about that. Next is this little guy here, which is probably, I guess, a 1/4 inch maybe. And it's very nice. It's got a super grippy 3D printed handle. This is great for getting into very small elements. This is probably the one I use most because mostly what we're dealing with are tiny impact points. I like to work them out with this first and then maybe widen it out. Now, I also have a set of various size two-headed stainless steel balls on rubberized handles, okay? These are also good. They've got all different sizes. These are great for working out defects. It's just you want a variety of choices. And then two of my favorites. These are clay modeling pieces. So they actually have like a silicone pad on the end. And actually, I use these silicone pads all the time when I have to lift up an edge of a piece of paper. I use these. They're fantastic. They don't damage the paper. They're super flexible. They don't stain. They don't do anything. And then the other end, they are very cool because they have super tiny. There you go. This one's round, super tiny round end, and this one is kind of like a seed end. So it's rounded on the flat and, well, not pointy, but rounded on the end. Okay. These are fantastic for little pin marks. You get a book that has little teeny tiny pocks in it, and you want to be able to hydrate that pock with the tiniest bit of water and then use this and work it back out from the back. Get it flat, then maybe you go to a larger one and work the area around that, and then you can smooth that whole thing out. It's fantastic. Okay, let's see here. So, items that we use for staples. So, we're not going to get into any potential restoration stuff here. So we're not going to talk about replacing staples. If you want to do staple replacement, it's not nearly as hard as everyone makes it out to be. Finding donor staples is actually easier, but there's other, you can make your own. Maybe later on, if people are interested, we'll talk about that. So this is a dental pick set. And what we have this for is tweezers, obviously. Great for holding and manipulating tiny pieces. And then also what we use a lot are these flat shoes. So sometimes we use those to help hold staple ends, to move things up. We also use this dental scraper right here. It's also great for surface scraping. Sometimes you'll get like a little tiny piece of something stuck to a book and it doesn't want to come up. This is great for grabbing the edges nice and flat and working that up. Then if you do have to pull a staple because you want to clean it and you want to pull it out, or you want to reset a staple in the center of a book because the staple's pulled or something, whatever, it doesn't really matter. You want to loosen the staple. It's overly tight and it's caused your spine to punch in, and you want to relieve the stress on that staple, okay? So these are two staple tools that we have. This is the original one that we use. This is your standard, whatever staple kind of tool that everybody uses. And now this is one that we bought. This is called the Flawless Staple Remover. Listen, this one's just better. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's better. And it's better because you can see in the end here, it's coated with a low, non-marring, super low friction material. I don't know what it is. I could look it up. It slides on the paper like butter. It's great. So when you want to slide this underneath of your staple, and then kind of lever it a little bit to get the edge up so that you can bend that staple end up, it's just super smooth, okay? Now, something else to go with staples is maybe you need to adjust the staple or relieve edge, or you need to straighten the staple. So this is I guess it's from Immaculate Comics, and it is, you can go to their site and look at it, but it's basically a little staple tool. You put your staples through the holes to straighten them back out, to sharpen up the 90s so they go back in nice and smooth. You can, if you need to reform it, you can reform it. Comes with a little tool, a little round plastic dowel, which you can use to basically reform that hump in the staple to make it nice and natural, okay? Stuff like this, you're getting into specialized tools, okay? Now, as for cleaning staples, you can clean the staple through electrolysis. You can clean the staple through chemical cleaner. You can make yourself a new staple. You can do whatever you want. We clean staples, if not just with an eraser, we use a strip of 3000 grit foam sandpaper. The reason it's so fine is so when you look at this under a microscope, the metal looks smooth. Well, not a microscope, but like a desk magnifier. You look under that, the metal looks smooth. If you use a coarser sandpaper, you're gonna leave scratch marks in the metal, and it's either gonna look bad or I don't know, could get conservation or something. Okay, this is perfectly smooth. We just use these to buff them up. We're not trying to make old staples look like they're shining brand new. They're going to look out of place on an old book, especially if a book shows rust marks in the paper. Don't polish those staples up so they look brand new. You're just going to get a purple label book. They're going to say that you replaced the staples. Okay. Moving on from that, we have a universal tool. This is a bone folding tool. This one obviously isn't actually bone. They initially would have been. This is some sort of plastic, but it's got smooth edges, smooth rounds, even the end here. It's also used in paper folding, but what this is used for is reforming spine. So when you press a book flat, and then you fold that book back up and you want to reform it, it's going to have this super huge hump on the end because you pressed it out flat. I like to fold the ends up, get it nice and square, and then use the rounded edge of this to slowly work down the spine and reform that back where it needs to be. And because it's smooth, you're not going to scrape the paper. It can also be used to help pressure paper back where it's supposed to be before pressing, things like that. Okay, a good useful tool. Distilled water in a pump, micro pump. Okay, use whatever container you want. I like the micro pump because I can have like literally one dot squeeze out, and then I can use a Q-tip or whatever I want to get moisture directly where I need it. Because sometimes you need to directly humidify a flaw, not the whole space, to work that out. It's especially true if you have a flaw that's a very deep, sharp penetration into the paper. Okay. Now the other one here that we're going to talk about is not for cleaning. This is Linco transparent mending tissue. Okay, for repairing seals in paper. Now, people will say that tape is restoration. Well, it's not. Tape is, you're preventing a flaw from getting worse. And even CGC will say, they'll just note, you'll get a blue label, but it'll say tape on cover or tape reinforced, whatever. Okay? Now, I have seen books with this come back where they say it was restoration, even though clearly it was tape. I've called CGC beforehand and said, hey, I have a book, and this is what's on it, and I'm sending it in, and I want to make sure. And they said, oh, yeah, no problem. Blue label. It'll say tape reinforced cover or something, or tape on cover. Comes back, purple label. So we do not use this very much anymore, unless the customer wants us to, or the tear is so bad that even just the handling at CGC is going to cause it to get worse, in which case you don't really have a choice. So we do reinforce tears and all that kind of covers and stuff if necessary. Sometimes you got to reinforce staple holes, whatever. Just keep in mind that there is always a risk that no matter what CGC says, they're gonna send it back a different way anyways. So that, guys, in a nutshell, is the sort of standard tools that we use. Now, in regular day-to-day use, we're not using all that stuff. We're using a few different sizes of erasers. We're using some pads for rubbing. We're buffing at the end. Maybe we're using a little hand tool to work out whatever. And that generally covers most books. Most of this stuff doesn't see a lot of use, but every so often you're going to get a book with a special flaw, and you're going to be like, man, I really wish I had a whatever to work on this. And that's where you buy things one at a time. You add a little thing. You add a little thing. Also, don't be afraid to buy things and test it. We buy stuff all the time because somebody in a group will say, hey, I used this item and it was great on this certain type of flaw, this type of book. And we'll be like, fantastic. We'll just buy it. Try it. If it's garbage, well, we'll throw it away. There are things that we have just abandoned a long time ago. That absorbing pink rolly stuff that people were always talking about using, back in the day, people are still using it. In our opinion, that is garbage. And if you have that, you need to throw it in your trash can now and save yourself, a ton of hassle. There are better tools that do the same thing and don't have the risks. That stuff can pull up paper pieces. It can leave behind staining. I don't know how it got so popular at the beginning, but it is no bueno. So hopefully that will help you guys out. We are going to start doing some more actual cleaning and pressing. Well, I guess we're not going to do a video of a book sitting in a press, but some more cleaning videos, and we'll show you guys sort of how we use these tools to effect on certain discounts. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and we'll do what we can to help out. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and have a great day. Ciao.